Hello everyone, are you ready for another anime recap? Then subscribe right now to this Anime Plots YouTube channel and watch this full video. Did you subscribe? Okay, let's start the video.
Endeavor thinks back to the end of his fight when Dabi approached him and Hawks, who were both obviously pretty beat up. Thankfully though, Mirko stepped in and Dabi was forced to retreat. But interestingly now though, we see Dabi and Hawks meeting up in a warehouse. Hawks is pissed because apparently Dabi changed the time and location of the attack. But Dabi wonders why Hawks brought the number 1 hero instead of a random strong guy to test the Nomu's strength. He walks out saying that he can't trust Hawks quite yet and won't let him meet Shigaraki. After we see a flashback of Hawks being put up to this by the Hero Public Safety Commission. They told him to infiltrate the League of Villains so he can spy and get valuable intel. Later, Endeavor leaves the hospital and heads home to his family. Fuyumi is happy to see him, but Natsuo cannot take it and walks out. Shoto seems to be somewhere in the middle compared to his siblings. Endeavor apologizes to his daughter and goes outside to talk to Natsuo. Back to Deku's weird dream. We get more this time and see an old memory between All For One and his brother. The younger bro is telling All For One to give up his evil ways, but obviously we know that doesn't quite work out. We get a visual representation of how All For One technically helped people, but also greatly manipulated them to become his lackeys. And soon he gathered a massive cult-like following. As he forcefully gives his brother a quirk, the younger sibling then talks to Deku, saying that he wanted to show more, but he's only at 20%. He also says to be careful since they are long past the singularity point. Their hands touch and Deku wakes up. The next day he goes to All Might to tell him what happened, but this never happened to All Might, so he's not really sure either. In any event, it's training time with Class 1A versus Class 1B in a series of 5 battles, 2 of which featuring our boy Shinso trying to transfer to the hero course. In round 1, Shinso holds his own. Kaminari actually has a smart-ish plan, but really it's Sue who hard carries Class 1A to the dub. In round 2, despite Tokoyami's new flying ability he learned with Hawks, and Momo giving out support items, they lose to Big Fist Kendo, the Black Eye, Manga Dude, and the Mushroom Girl who freaking made mushrooms inside Tokoyami's lungs. Round 3 features Ida going ham with Recipro Burst for 10 minutes, and Shoto unleashing fire like never before, but it ends up in a draw because Ida actually attends the Prometheus School of Running Away from Things, and not UA. Round 4 is an absolute stomp for Class 1A, with Bakugo Kamehamehaing Lizard Girl, and showing better teamwork than previous seasons. Meanwhile, at Tartarus Prison, All For One suddenly says that he can hear his little brother's voice. That's weird, and scary. Back at training, it's time for the final round with Deku's team versus Monoma and Shinso. Deku is preparing for an attack when, out of nowhere, energy vines come out of his arm, confusing everyone. They start to go way out of control, and now Deku is scared he's going to seriously hurt people, and tells Shinso to run. The power flings him up in the air, but Ochako latches on, tells him to calm down, and instructs Shinso to use his brainwashing quirk on Deku. This finally causes the vines to go back into his arm, and knocks Deku back into the Dream World Paths-like place. But this time, there's a guy yelling at him, a previous One For All user. He says that the vines are actually his quirk, supercharged via mixing with One For All. He says Deku will get all 6 quirks from the previous One For All users, presumably all supercharged as well. Damn, that feels a little OP, no? Beyond All Might's strength and 6 extra quirks, Ochako slaps him awake, and for some reason the fight still continues despite what just happened. Eventually Deku's team pulls out the win, and so overall Class 1A beats Class 1B 3-1. But it looks like Shinso did a good job in his matches, so he will most likely transfer to the hero course in his 2nd year. Later on we see Bakugo and Shoto finally receive their provisional licenses. And it looks like they're gonna need it soon because we get a quick flashback to 9 days ago, where Shigaraki blew up a whole goddamn city. The teachers receive word from the higher-ups to resume work studies, presumably because they might need the extra help. The principal also has not found any student that he thinks could be potentially spying for the League of Villains. After a fun Christmas party featuring an adorable Eri, Shoto asks Deku and Bakugo if they want to do their work study with Endeavor. We go back a few weeks prior and see Hawks attacking Best Jeanist in order to gain trust with Dabi and the League of Villains. Back in the present, Hawks goes to a mansion where he meets some heroes who say that with the devices implanted in Hawks, they will be able to expose a lot about hero society. Interesting. Meanwhile, the 1A Big 3 meet up with Endeavor, and Bakugo calls them cringe. They rush to stop a villain, and guess who? Hawks is also there. Dude is everywhere. He gives Endeavor a book about the Meta Liberation War, and praises it in a way that makes Endeavor suspicious of his true intentions. Hawks says to specifically read the parts he has highlighted. Since he's constantly under surveillance, he has to pass on his message in this way. In his office, Endeavor goes through the book and eventually finds the hidden message. The enemy is the Liberation Army. They number over 100,000. In 4 months, to action. Hawks then goes to the same or maybe another mansion with a board of people, including the League of Villains for some reason. One guy praises him for spreading the word about the Meta Liberation War. Hawks says that the commission has been busy investigating the League of Villains to the city collapse from before, and after he leaves, he hears through his feathers that in 4 months, they will destroy everything. Endeavor realizes that the work study is to prep students for what's about to come, and he takes the 3 out to start training them. Endeavor reflects on his past with his family, wondering what he can do for them. After all this time, Fuyumi then invites everyone for dinner, and things are, a bit awkward, yeah? After we see Endeavor pray for his dead son Toya, wishing he could be here. As we leave the fun dinner, an old creepy Endeavor fanboy villain attacks, holding Natsuo as hostage. Endeavor charges in, but after seeing his son's face, he stops. Instead, it's Bakugo, Shoto, and Deku taking care of capturing the villain and saving Natsuo along with the other bystanders. Endeavor goes in to hug his son, who breaks free after his shock is over. Endeavor apologizes, saying that he thought if he rescued him, then Natsuo would never be able to talk back to Endeavor again. He admits that he ran away from his responsibility as a father, and that he might as well have killed Toya. Natsuo replies, saying he won't ever forgive him, but Endeavor says he doesn't want forgiveness. He just wants to atone. Elsewhere in Tartarus prison, Aizawa and Present Mic get called over, and are pretty disturbed. Apparently, the villain Kurogiri is actually a Nomu built off the human base of their dead high school friend. They've been asked to see if they can get Kurogiri to revert back a little bit, if you will, and give up any information about the League of Villains. It's a rough trip down memory lane, but eventually they get Kurogiri to say the word hospital before he shuts down. This info gets passed on to Hawks while we see the doctor conducting one crazy-ass experiment on Shigaraki. We flash back 2 months in the past, where the League is dealing with Gigantomachia, who All For One left behind. The Giant is not happy with Shigaraki, crying that he's too weak to be the successor. They get transported to the doctor, who says that if they can make the Giant submit to them, he will offer his full support. Go forward 2 months, and the League is still trying to take down Gigantomachia. He attacks for 48 hours straight, with 3-hour naps in between. That's relentless. Suddenly, Twice gets a call from Girin, but instead it's the leader of the Meta Liberation Army, Redestro. He declares his army's objective is to liberate meta powers and rebuild the world where people can freely use their abilities, and are holding Girin as hostage. They have over 110,000 warriors in their army, and want to crush the League. He tells them to come to Deka City within an hour to fight. Shigaraki agrees, with a plan to lure Gigantomachia there so those two forces can duke it out. The League arrives, and we got a giant battle on our hands with the Liberation Warriors ready and eager to fight. After some fighting, she eventually turns into Ochako, and is actually able to use her quirk to kill the reporter and get away, though she's barely still hanging on. Twice finds her, but now is being attacked by puppets who look like him, as the army knows his psychological weakness. But that turns out to be a bad move, because once the puppets break Twice's arm, he realizes he's not disappearing, which means he must be the original Twice. With this constant worry finally gone, he goes ham and makes an absurd amount of copies. This helps Shigaraki reach Redestro's tower, and the two are set to face off. Redestro gets huge with his stress quirk and grabs Shigaraki's hands, but then the flashback starts. We see a young Tenko Shimura getting punished by his father for playing hero. He's left alone outside, and his family does not intervene. One day his sister shows him a picture of their grandmother Nana Shimura, and that together, they'll be secret sibling heroes. His father finds out though, and the sister blames it on Tenko, who then gets beaten. His father had deep-seated issues with heroes because he felt that his mother abandoned him to save strangers instead. The family finally decides to make a stand. Tenko is outside with his dog, but not for long as his quirk activates for the first time and the dog decays into a pile of blood. His sister, who came to apologize for before, sees this and starts to run away. But as Tenko is freaking out, not knowing what's going on, he grabs onto her, and she too disintegrates. His shock amplified, he touches the ground and everything starts decaying, including his grandparents and his mother. Finally, the father steps out and sees what happened. He grabs a pole to hit his son to make him stop, But Tenko becomes enraged, and with a clear intent to kill, grabs his father's face, destroying him with sheer delight. After the deaths of his family, Tenko ends up wandering the streets alone. He hoped that someone would help him, but nobody does. Well, somebody does. All for One takes him in and molds him into an angry killer, creating hands of his family to wear so that he'll always feel hatred. His memory finally unlocked, Shigaraki declares he doesn't need a future, and unleashes his full power, almost destroying the entire city. Even Gigantomachia, who finally showed up, is left in awe. Redestro survives the attack with some quick thinking by cutting off his legs. He admits defeat, and turns his army over to the hands of Shigaraki, the one who is truly free. A week later, the Liberation Army is putting spin on the events of the battle. Can't hide this one. It's supposedly a random criminal group's doing, and the heroics of the regular civilians are receiving special attention. In the aftermath, Redestro is giving a speech to his army, telling them about the new leader. They also have a new name, the Paranormal Liberation Front. But whatever the name, Shigaraki says they'll do what they want. Speaking of, he wants more power, and now since they won over Gigantomachia, the doctor agrees to juice him up. This will take about 4 months of brutal pain. We also saw Hawks during the ceremony, who continues to prove his loyalty by bringing Dabi Best Jeanist. He wants to figure out who Shigaraki's backer is as soon as possible. Back at UA, All Might gives Deku a book with information about past One For All users, though he couldn't get anything about the second and third. Now that Deku has some control of Black Whip, he should learn Nana Shimura's quirk next, Float. Fast forward and spring break is about to be over, and all of Class 1A have a work-study operation at the same time and place. That's a bit strange, isn't it? They're told that their mission is to evacuate residents, but with Deku narrating that the war with the Paranormal Liberation Front is about to begin, I think it's safe to say that shit is about to go down. And so that's a wrap for the recap, and now I am super hyped for Season 6.
How was the video? We hope it was good. If so, please check these videos. Also, please comment down your thoughts and your suggestions for future videos. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing now to show the support to our channel. We hope to see you soon with another video right in this channel. Have a nice day.